welcome to my weekly channel update. It is Sunday the 30th of November, and this is the video where I talk about the books that have arrived, the games that I've played. There won't be any this week, I've been away, and also I'll have a conversation topic at the end of the video. And this week's conversation topic is looking at my top 10 fantasy games of all time, following on from last week's video where I looked at the 10 reasons why I've walked away from 5th edition. And I just want to sort of start this video with a massive thank you. That video outperformed anything I've ever done and recorded before. You know, when you do things, you don't really know how well they're going to do, and I had a lot of comments, and a huge amount of comments. I think I've responded to everybody, but more importantly, when I am discussing something that you dislike, I did find when people disagreed with me, they were incredibly polite, and it just sparked conversation, which was, I think, was the idea of the video. You know, no one was outright abusive to me, which was brilliant. It just goes to show how wonderful this hobby is, that we are all in it together. Just because I don't necessarily like a system, people direct, I'd say it was absolutely brilliant, and I didn't see any real arguing across the comments across other people as well. So and thank you, you know, and if you've recently found me off that, buddy, thank you for subscribing. If you've been watching me from before, again, thank you as always for the support. Just a quick little bit of news. Well, this is an idea that I've had. I'm considering doing a sort of live news, well, not like a news type video. I'm just kind of wondering whether there's anyone's interested in if I did that, where I'll talk about Kickstarter's news that's come in and have a sort of topical, and probably look at doing it live. I don't know. It's just something that I'm toying around with someone else. We've sort of thrown the idea, so I don't know whether that's something of interest. Let me know down in the video, you know, comments if that's something of interest, or obviously talk about it on my Discord. So what I've played, that's done. What books have came in this week? I think 5 have come, well, the 6 have come in, and there is one that I don't really want to talk about and show, and that is Motive Night. Okay, and the reason for that, it's a 360-page rule book. I can't find any links to it going live. It was sent to me over WFRP. I haven't seen any sort of follow-up on there at all. If you have sent an email and I haven't responded to you, this goes to anyone, and you don't hear from me within a few days, it's gone to junk. Just drop a note under any of my videos, basically saying, Adrian, I've sent you this book, I'm a creator of this, whatever it may be. I can then go back through my junk mail and go and find it, or go through my deleted emails and try and find it, and we can talk from there. But what I'll do is I'll get into the other 5. We're starting off with the Shadows of Sharad, which is an Egyptian-based first-level themed dungeon crawl for ShadowDark. It's been sent to me by Michael Benoit from Merry Manticore Games, and this is the same creator that sent me sort of Secret Life of Monsters, the Codex, of the magical codex, where you could adjust magic items and things like that, and there was a couple of other, like the Manticore caves and stuff. So obviously the links come to me from WFRP, and it does come with all the maps and things like that. I keep forgetting to mention there are maps in here, but we're going to go in. I like Egyptian themed stuff, so this very much reminds me of Shadow of Empire for ShadowDark, written by Fenris77. So it's that sort of Egyptian theme that we've got. Nice, clear, laid out map. Got all the random tables in here, so I'm not going to go too far in, but we've got 14 different rooms, and then I'm just going to sort of scroll to the back, and we've got a full-on bestiary as well. So we've got some sand elementals, some flash snakes, and a snake priest and things. So it's very much going to feel like a sort of snake cult Egyptian themed one-shot. You know, looking at the size of the rooms, I reckon you probably do this in one evening, maybe 2 at a push. So the second lot have all come from the same creator, and that is Christopher Wilson. He sent me 3 books, all for Castles and Crusades, and these are the Braunhaven's Player's Guide and then a couple of adventures. So this is a 273-page. It's basically reads to me like a setting for Castles and Crusades. And what I really like, well, I don't like this. Everyone, you know, if you're on the channel, is fully aware I don't like these weird letters at the start of words, but all the characters and creations are available in here. So you got all the standard classes for Castles and Crusades. Also, you could adapt this for ShadowDark. You could adapt this for Tales of a Ghost. So there's lots of other OSR, you know, school essentials. I think you could quite easily convert this. But when I first get into the book and you get the option to play a necromancer, I'm in. I'm just in. You know, when you can go and heal the dead, as I talk about a lot, the ability to play a necromancer is really good. But this is up for the latest version of Castles Crusades as well. I say the latest version. There's no additions, but the latest printing, because when I reviewed that recently, it does give you the 13th level plus levels in here. So I like the layout. The fonts used are nice. So it's got rid of that weird background color that Troll Games puts on their books, which takes a little bit of getting used to. We've also got a witch class in here. It talks then about adapting some of the existing races and classes. We've got some leprechauns. Is that Quatari, I think, here, which seems to be some sort of charismatic sort of elf, half giants in here. And then it will take you through a load of new spells and stuff. So yeah, this just looks like a full player's guide campaign setting to run alongside Castles and Crusades. But he then sent me this, which is Werewolves of London. And I love werewolves. And it's a 1st to 3rd level adventure, 76 pages. Again, for Castles Crusade, it's coming with a village map, a hex crawl map, and then all of the locations in there, as well as a 4-act adventure. Missed that little bit, so the last one is just sort of wrapping up. But so maybe it's 3 main ones, but we've got all the maps here, and then so these are player-facing maps. When I had a flick through, give you all the sort of locations, and then it give you a hex crawl for moving the players across as well in here. So we've got loads of random locations, random adventure generators, sort of loads of maps. When you download this from WFRP, there's a huge map section included in it as well. So you've got this secret sort of quest, trying to go and find out what's going on with the adventures with the werewolves and stuff. And then finally he sent me also the Town of the Edge of Shadow, which is another adventure based in his world. And this is going to give us some new monsters, the adventure. We've got 4 acts to this one, and it comes in at 90 pages here. Oh, is this section, what if the player dies? Let's not read that. I try not to be too spoiling, but we've got some demons. This is going to have demons, and like the other, we've got Jester Demon. Okay, that's quite cool. Randomly 1 to 4 of those, and then we've got the Prelude into the Terror in the Caves. Like the other one, hex crawl maps. We've got maps then for buildings and things. Let's just... there's an undead ox. I don't think I've ever seen an undead ox. And then finally, it's another ShadowDark sort of expansion. This is going to give you a lot of NPCs and ideas of and motivations for creatures and monsters that you're going to find. And this is for Fandonia, so it's called The Folks of the Duchy, by Alexandro Fettia. I'm sure that's how we pronounced his name. He'd probably tell me that it's wrong. But we've got all these new ancestries here for, say, characters that you're going to interact with. Well, let's just pick on, let's just go Pinocchios, because they are the fun. So it's going to give you a little bit more of a background of the Pinocchios. Type of wood they're made for, how they were given birth, the first lie they're ever told, marks from the maker, variety of other things and trinkets on them and background. This is going to make NPCs so much more interesting. And say there's we have like 6 or 7 different types of there, and then also at the back random names, and then some additional random encounters for those species, which ancestries, isn't it, for ShadowDark, which is more is always better, I think. Say Fandonia, if you've not watched the review of it, go and watch it. It's a how is it described? Mediterranean fantasy. Someone actually described it to me on my Discord. Is it Branconia, I think, which is the 5e sort of that sort of Mediterranean sea setting. So yeah, those are the 5 books that I've had in. I said I have had the extra one, but I will add links to all of these down in the video description. So if you're interested, you know, like all these, they technically become previews of things that I will be reviewing at some stage. So sorry that I didn't manage to get a full read through of any of those this week. I say it's just been one of those. Thought I'd have time, but I didn't. Right, so my top 10 fantasy games of all time. This has surprised me because, and I think this is testament to subscribers and videos and people on my Discord and comments and things like that, because When I first did one of this around about the same sort of time last year, when I was sort of tiddling around with what I was going to do with the YouTube channel, so I'll just put a top 10 together and kind of see where it went. And this top 10, I have 7 brand new entries, which just shouldn't happen. Now, that kind of means one of two things, and I think I know what it means. It means that I did not know anywhere near enough about TTRPGs, role players. You know, my spectrum was just not broad enough on things that I played and reviewed. And we know it means that one. But more importantly, it means that I am getting incredibly good recommendations from people in video comments and on my Discord and on Facebook and things like that. So keep up the recommendations, keep throwing ideas at me and the things to book, because I try to buy everything I can, and I'd say all the money generated on my Ttrpg affiliate link, again, thank you for everyone that's used that, I just put back into buying stuff, because it's like, I think it's the Lion and Dragon, which I'm really interested in picking up at some stage. So I'm just waiting for the money to sort of tick up, and then I'll go and grab that. And again, so it means I can review it. So it's quite nice that a lot of the time this isn't always costing me my own money. So thank you for all the recommendations. But I think I've probably talked enough about the top 10. So let me just then get into the top 10 fantasy games that I think you should be playing by the end of 2025. So my number 10, it's a solo game, and it's by one of my favourite solo game writers, and that is Kernethelus, which, if you've not played this, then you are really missing out. This is it's a solo stroke co-op game. I nearly cut this from the list because I was like, is this a cheat by having a solo game? Because I've never played this with a group of people. But no, I've left it on. It's a D100 roll under system, and you've been found guilty of a crime. You may have done it, you may not have done it, and you are basically then thrown under a city to go and walk around the dungeons in the dark and try and discover your way out. There is no way out. You're gonna die. But you're going to have so much fun dying going through. So initially, you're going to get to pick one of 2 classes, and so things like Masteries and Arcane can be a brawler, things like that as you go through the book. It's a D100 roll under, so if you've played anything like Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing, Call of Cthulhu, any of that, it's just as simple as that. So here we got, this is the crime you're accused of right at the start. You can roll a D20 and, see where you go, and you can decide whether you want it or not. But yeah, it's in essence. I've done a video on this, so I will link the video. I'm now thinking I probably haven't done videos for everything in my top 10. I think there's probably one that I haven't actually done a full video for. But yeah, you can say you're going to pick 2 different classes here. And at this moment in time, you are just playing a human in here. But once we then get into the back, you'll see why it's fantasy. It's a little bit on the horror-ish side. So we've got different creatures and monsters. And each area of the dungeon is going to have a boss. And that boss is going to affect all of the other creatures within that area. So once you then take that boss down, you can move on. But you can just run away. But you're going to have to sort of plan out your evenings, your nights, how you rest. It's quite a tense but really interesting game. And the other thing, if you're a fan of things like Dragonbane, when the creatures attack, it's that Dragonbane feeling, because they're rolling a d6, they're automatically going to hit you. You're going to try and sort of dodge to get out of the way, and then certain actions are going to take place. And then we've got, say, these big sort of boss type creatures, forgotten what they're called. Sorry, Alex. And say they are the ones with the full art and stuff like that. It's absolutely brilliant. It is available on Ttrpg, so anything that's in here that's available on Ttrpg, I'll also link through. There's lots of other magazines, there's lots of support for it as well. It's a really good book. So that is my number 10, Kernethelus. Now, number 9 has existed for a long time in my collection, and we are now specifically talking about the 6th edition. My favourite was the 4th, which sadly was Greg's least favourite, and that's because it had the Celtic magic. But I'm slowly coming round to 6th edition because of the artwork, the layout, and they are redoing the Great Campaign. And well, as you can see by here, my number 9 is Pendragon, which I had to Google whether I could class this as fantasy, because I sadly class this as initially historical because it's based in history, and it's fantasy because it's got fantasy creatures in it. But in my mind, it's more historical than fantasy, but it's not. But so it's a D20 system. It's got one of the best mechanics that I really wish other games would have, and that's the virtue mechanic, which kind of forces players into making decisions. It actually means people actually play to the virtues or the sort of the motivations of the characters. So no other game does this. So this has existed since, I think it's the early 80s when Greg first wrote this. And as I probably should have said, you are playing in the Arthurial time period. So all the way up to, it's sort of like the late 500s is when it's set. But it's a D20 system, D20 roll under. You can play male or female knights now. There's a little bit of sort of magic in here, but the players don't really, because you are broadly playing knights. But what this does, in as well as the brilliant virtue systems, is you have summer events and then downtime events, which basically means you'll play the session, and normally you'll play maybe for a few hours, and you'll do one thing for that year normally, and then you go down into a sort of the winter stage, where you will then randomly roll to see what happens, because you're not really playing a character in this, you're playing a family. Okay, because time's going to go on. Each session that you play normally will be a year, and your character is quite brutal, so the characters can die. So you kind of need to get used to the fact that players are going to die. But it does mean that when you die, you're going to take over someone else. You may be the squire that's younger. You may be the wife or the child of that person, and then, or hopefully, you're going to be in your sort of 40s and 50s when your character actually does die, because you can die in winter events and other things, and you know you're going to have children. This is going to sound horrific now, but children can die in childbirth. It's designed to be a very brutal world, but a living world nevertheless. And I'd say it's nice and simple. Say D20 theoretically rolling under, but this virtue system. Do I want to? Maps are brilliant. Do you know? I don't think I'm going to get as far as the virtue system, but I will show some of the sort of downtime things that are going on, which is called the winter phase. So you'll be a lot of time doing rolling d20s to work out different things are going on in here as well. So we've got, you know, the tables that may affect your passions, your traits, but more importantly, you know, the impact of aging. I forgot to mention that is, as your character gets older, your characteristics are going to start reducing, which some people may or may not like, but it's a proper living world, and I wish more people would play games of this. So you've got like things like tragedy that's going on, childbirth, tragedy, causes of death where it's illness, accident. I say it's not going to be for everyone, but everyone that I know that has played it tends to love it. Okay, so that's my number 9, which is Pendragon. Number 8 is, I probably should have said the first 3 are new entries. My number 8 is another new entry, which is Mithras, which completely surprised me, because people were like, you really need to go and look at Mithras and give it a go. And I was like, okay, you know, I really like RuneQuest, but none of my players do. No one in any of my groups ever has been interested in RuneQuest. I bought it several times and sold it. And people are like, why don't you play Mithras? And I was like, okay, so it's D100 roll under, Call of Cthulhu, uses that basic system. But it's also, this book, probably should say it's rules agnostic. There's no sort of world for it, but you can go and get Mythic Britain, which is a really, really interesting book. I say I've reviewed both of those in here. But if you're, you know, I think it makes a nice change to not actually roll d20s and do fantasy for a start. But more importantly, and I would say the biggest thing that this does differently, so you've got character creation, and you're going to come from different backgrounds, depending on, and you're going to have different cultures, and all of that is going to change how much money you've got, the languages you speak, the type of occupations and careers that you can go into, and the skills that are available. But more importantly, once we get into combat, it's got special effects that are really, really, ignoring all the other wonderful stuff and the magic this does, this is the big thing that stands out, is depending on the weapon you're using and what you know or use and how well you succeed, you're going to be able to pull off additional things during combat, which makes it fast, deadly. You don't get any of that sort of drag down that you get with other games where, because again, one of the problems with hit point games is they can sort of drag on a little bit long, but you're going to be able to sort of pull off, and actually as a defender, you can also pull off really interesting maneuvers. I'll link the review in the video description as well for this, because I have reviewed this one. Absolutely wonderful. My number 8 is a Mithras. My number 7 is, this has always been recommended to me. We've played through the starter set, had an absolute blast. Took me a while to wrap my head round, even though I've played Pendragon for years. Which is Dragonbane, which is your sort of roll under D20. So this is by Free League Publishing. This has existed as well since I think the early 80s. Can't remember exactly what it was called, but I remember hearing the story that the guy that created this was in America. He'd sort of seen Dungeons and Dragons played, moved back to, I want to say, Sweden, and then just created the game. There was no internet, so nobody knew. I say this has existed for a long time. Then Free League have translated it back into English, and say it's such a good game. Say beautiful artwork. It's got one of those initiatives that people will either like or hate. If you're a fan of Suede, anything like that, then you're just using playing cards. But players are then going to be, it's relatively low fantasy. You've got humans, halflings, dwarfs, elves, mallard, duck people, or wolfkin, which are kind of like werewolves. And I know the mallard have a little bit, people are like, no, you don't want to play a duck. Is it a real game? Is it a joke game? It's not a joke game. This is a really good game where you can play a duck person if you want to. And if you don't want to, don't have them. But I would include them. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it's Dragonbane. Different classes, so it is going to feel very much, it's got that Dungeons and Dragons feel. And I think the only reason why this isn't higher on my list is the magic system. Now, there's nothing innately wrong with the magic system, but what I didn't like when I was playing my magic user, and I think I was a priest, I think they were called. I'm just going to have a look here. I was the healing one, so it's the mage, but I went down the healing route. But you do have, and I don't like this in games, I kind of think you either have magic points or a skill check to roll. This one you have both. So you've still got to succeed at a skill check to get off your spell, but then you've got a certain amount of willpower points that you can spend to make your spells better. And I kind of think if you're going to make someone roll for something, let them succeed, or make them spend spell points. So that's just a little, I think if it was slightly different to that, maybe if I ran this, I would homebrew it, and I think this would be a little bit higher up, which is why I ended up down at my number 7. So my number 6 is a very recent book to my collection, and I haven't played this with people, but I'd imagine it's going to be absolutely amazing when you do. And this has been something that people have been telling me to read and review for well over a year. And this is the Player's Handbook for Castles and Crusades. The weird thing about Castles and Crusades is you don't need a monster manual. You don't need the Gamekeeper's book, which is the Dungeon Master's Guide. You just need this. The Player's Handbook covers all the rules. So that 290 pages, it's going to do everything in here. It's light. It's a D20 rollover. It's going to feel very much like AD&D in that thing. It's got Ascending Armor class, so it's not going to hurt me with that annoying Thaco. And I say annoying, it's just because I can't understand it. But we've got all the classes that the classic classes you'd expect, plus an assassin. And then all the races, sort of gnome, elf, and they're all going to feel very different, apart from the really boring human that is going to allow you to make skill checks considerably easier 50% of the time. So what does this game do that's different to the others? So other than the sort of brutal old school feel to it, and there's a theme on a lot of my fantasy things. I say I'm not massively into high fantasy or anything like that. This is also, there's no sort of world within the book, so you're going to have to find your own world, which is exactly, it's utterly fine. But what you do get is you're going to roll a d20, and then you're going to be looking to achieve a certain success level. So normally the difficulty is going to be 18. You're going to get to add your attribute to it, plus any sort of other bonuses that you're going to get. However, if you have got a primary stat, of which you've got 2 of, your base starts at 12. Okay. Now, what do humans get? We'll just let's just go to one of the races first. And so what we've got here, I should say, it's got a mage and illusionist as 2 separate things, which means illusionists are really powerful. They're really going to mess with people's minds, which is really interesting. But when we get into the classes, into races in here, so you can multi-class and things. So look at this dwarf. So the dwarf is going to have things like animosity 12s, deep vision, so it can see in the dark, proper things that remind you of playing dwarfs, unlike other systems sort of do nowadays. They don't like goblins. They're going to get bonus to fighting giants. I'd forgotten that was a thing. That was, I think, 3.5 D&D had that in as well. Resistance to fear, stone crafting, bonus to some attributes, minuses to others, some bonuses to stats, things like that. So the elves, half elves, all are going to have all these things. Half orcs are in here. Humans don't get any of that. They just get this. Because of the unique nature of humankind, humans choose an additional primary attribute. So orcs and everyone else, they're going to get 2. Bear in mind there's only 6 attributes across the whole game. They're going to get to pick a bonus one, which means 50% of the time they're getting +6 in essence, because their difficulty goes from 18 to 12 on 50% of the skills. It's such a wonderful choice to give players. Do you want to be better 50% of the time? Or do you want to go and have really cool things and have your own races and stuff? All the classes feel very different. It will take you up to, when I have a look here, all the way up to level 24. You don't get hit point bloat with this as well either. So once you get over, I think it's level 10, you stop rolling. Yeah, so once you get to level 10, you stop in rolling. You're just going to get a static amount of hit points. Some of the classes are very front loaded, but they do feel very different. You can multi-class. You can do that the old-fashioned class and a half as well. And when we get into spells, you've got spell slots. It's going to be harder. You need to think about it. And all of them, I think you need to plan your spells in advance, which makes things difficult, which is how spellcasters should be, because spellcasters are so powerful. They also level up slower than the other classes, so they've got that slight disadvantage here. So it's absolutely brilliant. I really love Castles and Crusades, and I think the only thing that I feel bad about is the fact that I didn't know it existed for years, or I avoided it, which is why my number 6 is Castles and Crusades. Now, my number 5 is created by a very small, I think it's a one-man band, at Pickpocket Press, and that's Steve Grodzicki, who's created the utterly amazing Tales of Agosa. Now, this is low fantasy, brutal, harsh fantasy game. It's everything I kind of want from my fantasy game, all wrapped up into a book. And what's amazing about this is, even if you go, do you know what, because the one bit that I think people dislike when you hear sort of feedback on this is you've got an element of roll over, an element of roll under. So again, you've got kind of skills, but skills do something different in this game, which we'll explain when we get to it. But what this does is, when you're attacking, you're going to be at roll d20, roll over. When you're doing any sort of save or skill check or anything like that, you'll do d20 rolling under, and you're pretty much rolling under your attribute, but then you get to add your skill check to make it a little bit easier, which I know some people mildly dislike that. But if you're going to pick up any book for support or help, the reason I've left it on the contents is because this is probably the best utility book I think you can grab for any version of fantasy, and especially D20 based version, because we've got loads of tables for doing things, encounters, combat, some sorcery tables, load of downtime tables in here, load of GM tools for creating dungeons, hex sprawling, help you out. Hirelings, remember that old school thing of, we haven't got a bandit to come with us or whatever it may be. Madness tables. Do you need mass combat rules? Do you need naval combat rules? Do you want some solo combat rules that are going to use some dice as well as a pack of cards? Do you need some more traps and loads of random tables? This is one of the most essential books I think that everyone should own as a games master. It should be there. But if that isn't enough, it's got an amazing game in itself. And I think I'd love to see more people do this, which is this core features on here. I'm not even going to talk about the beautiful black and white art, but we've got 9 classes. You go to 9th level. Once you get to 10th level, you're out. You've retired. So it stops that weird curve that goes on. Flat HP curves is you're going to have 40 hit points max. You're going to get some unique features in here that you can get in there. You're going to get some skills, and skills allow you to re-roll. We do have one bonus attribute here, so willpower and perception is split. So you've got 7 core attributes in here. Faster initiative, fierce combats and battles because you haven't got that, a huge amount of hit points. Then we've got these sort of downtime tables and stuff like that. But as you go through, you're going to see that it is absolutely stunning and well laid out. It's very hard to wrap your head around that this is created by one person and one person alone. It's such amazing quality product, from layout and everything else. And we've got a couple of artificer classes. We'll just show you some of the classes. Barbarian in here, the bard, cultist. We've got the fighter, a magic user, monk, and then we've got a ranger as well as a rogue. And that's it. And then so you've got party bonds. You can write. Say it's such amazing. It's all these different sort of feats and things like that you can pick out, and then say the skill list relatively small, but all that's going to do it's going to give you some sort of re-rolls in here as well, which is why, wow, go and pick it up. You're going to love this, or everything that's included in it. Which is my number 5 is Tales of Agosa. Number 4 is another brand new game into my collection, which is Horde Wars Advanced, which I've got to say this, it's probably the worst laid out book that's definitely in my top 10, but the rules are amazing when you can find them. And it's written by Todd and Nathan here, and say from design and layout of the book, it's just very strange. And what I mean by that is there'll be rules and different character classes and stuff that are sort of hidden and it's sort of in the book. So as time goes on, you do discover stuff, but it can make it a little bit slower. But oh boy, all is forgiven because the game mechanic, how it all works, once you do learn where everything is, it's absolutely amazing. D20s are going to roll and explode or give criticals 1 in every 20 times. How much better is it rolling a D12, which argumentatively is the best die out there? I just love the D12. It doesn't quite roll as far. It makes a little bit more of a noise, but on this, 1 in 12 times of getting a crit. 1 in 12 trans, so, things not going too well when you get a 1. But it's a level-based system. It's got its own world. It's got maps at the back. Every NPC is beautifully described and explained, and I'll sort of show you some of the lore stuff as you get back. So you've got effectively 12 pages of rules, which is probably one of the simplest, easiest systems that you're ever going to learn. But I said there are a few additional things that you just need to go and find in the rule book, which can be a little bit problematic. So we've got things like traps in here, character creation, nice and simple, level based up to level 12. I think we managed to get to level 5 so far in the ongoing campaign. And like most games, well, like Kernethelus, I probably should say, we've got, I think, is it 5 or 6 different classes? We've got 5 classes plus some hidden ones in the back. I would have appreciated them in the front. But again, I've spoken to Todd about it. The reason that Todd has done it is because they've designed it to go and find, at a later stage, because they didn't want to sort of bloat it out and complicate things. Absolutely fine, but again, one of those option things. So if you miss it, you're not going to find it. But what players are going to be doing is picking 2 different classes, so you can become a acolyte, huntsman, or whatever it may be. And your class is going to give you some specific powers and maneuvers that you're going to do. And where this is beautiful is that maneuver aspect of it. So there'll be certain powers that you're going to get like supernatural that you're just going to be able to do as an action. But then other things you get as a maneuver, and you get a maneuver per turn. So an action you're going to do on your turn. A maneuver you can do at any time normally, depending on if it'll allow you to. But so let's take, for example, the Tavern Wench here. Designed to be a female, I've played a male Tavern Wench because, you know, I like to push the boundaries. But the Tavern Wench gets evasion. So when you're not wearing heavy armour, the first attack that would normally hit you each round misses instead. Automatically misses. You haven't got to do anything for that. That's not even going to give up your manoeuvre. You're always going to be missing. And because people are going to crit 1 in 20 times, they can combat. And I say swingy in the most wonderful way because it is brutal and deadly. Because we've had combats where I've rolled a couple of 12s in a row and it just changes the game. They think they're doing well. But also, when we get into, so we've got different sort of classes here. We've got skills as well. But this is what I mean about some of the stuff. So you've got these astronomical events in here and different seasons that are going to change. So they're in the skill section. So once you know, my book is just full of Post-it notes in here to go and find different things in here. Because more often than not, if you can't find it, it's in the skill section. But you're going to get all these features as well, game-changing features. But I want to just show, I'm going to go through all the equipment. Let's not worry about that. The Games Master section, so you can go and build your own empires and dominion pay. But we've got different types of animals, and let's just I'm going to pick on something. Here we go. Runebound Colossus. So there's no levels. You don't know how powerful this is when you put this in front of players. You do know it's got 240 hit points, so it's going to take quite a while to hit down. So you're probably not going to want to run this at sort of first, at sort of 5th level players. But they're going to have, when you're running, all you've got is skills here. So you've got athletics, combat, investigation, magic. So +4 combat. That's +4 to hit, +4 to magic. And you're normally looking just to beat the standard AC of the character, or in this game, the defense. Defenses tend to be a little bit lower, especially if people aren't wearing armor. And when you're running through these stat blocks, they will have variety of immunities and protection. And the players are all going to have different opportunities to do attacks with different types of damage. So you get this wonderful game, sort of mini game during the combat where they're trying to work out what they're vulnerable to, what they're immune to, what damage they should and shouldn't be doing. You've got wonderful skills as well of standing behind players to gain advantage on attacking, so you can get +2 to attack when you do manage to sort of gang up on them. It's designed. I fought one of these. Well, they are horrible. It's pretty much designed for mass combat as well. So you can take your bunch of players and then you can throw a horde of goblins at them. You could throw 40 or 50 in there. It's got all the rules, and also it has got the rules for full-on mass combat if you want to go and play your Dominion play, and you know, if you want to save it and build a castle. But beyond that, we can then it's random tables for magical artifacts and rewards that the player's going to get. But it's going to come with a level 1 adventure to get the players going, and then you've got this starting area here from Grimstead, and each area is then going to have several adventures, and the adventures are done in a wonderful way, because what you'll see, I don't want to sort of spoil anything too much, but it'll just give you a description of the area, and then how the player's going to get there is up to you, because there's travel rules in here with random encounters. The more successful the players are at sort of navigating through the areas, the less random encounters they're going to get. But that all builds out really well and interestingly. But more importantly, when we get into, you know, these little sort of snippets of adventure ideas, there's quite a lot of freedom that you're going to get as a player. But if you then want the whole world bit, we can then take out from the world, which Mercy is where we're based, and then we're going to go into here. But for example, this is it Adalus? I think it is. There's even quest ideas around castles and cities and stuff, and there's all these different states. It's the amount of wonderful stuff in here, all wrapped into this really, really exciting D12 system. So once you find it in the book, you'll be absolutely laughing, and you're going to have a whale of a time. So that is my number 4. My number 3 is last year's number 2, which is the One Ring that has slipped a little bit. Again, Free Leagues. Free Leagues managed to get 2 books into my top 10. Now, this is a game that is set in between Battle of the Five Armies and the Lord of the Rings. So you've got that it's sort of 20 years either way, and that sort of 40-year sort of gap in there, which always does. I should probably say that this is the 2nd edition, but it always does sometimes feel like one of the reasons I didn't like playing Star Wars a huge amount is because you've kind of got to really pick the era where you're going to play it, because when, Luke and everyone's going off, and so in this you've got Gandalf and things. But what this does is gives the players Patreons. As much as I say, it's sat in that middle period, so you don't kind of get the ring isn't happening, Battle of the Five Armies is over. You're still discovering the upcoming threat of stuff that's going on, and there's sort of corruption in the world and everything else. But you'll have these Patreons, so you can actually go and meet Gandalf, and Gandalf will give you missions and ideas of things to do. The book is probably one of the most beautiful books that you'll ever see. But when you get it physically, they'll come with like this wonderful linen finish that just feels so nice. And they're really light. They're weirdly thick and dense, but light. There's so much support and other sort of books for this. And there's another one that's just been announced. So I'm slowly going back, filling and reviewing all of the books for this. But, it's just amazing. The system, probably let's talk about the system. It's a D10 system that rolls a D12. Okay, and why do I call it a D10? And it's because basically the players are always going to get a difficulty to succeed. So, and that's normally going to range from sort of 14 to 17. So that's what they're going to sort of have. And they're going to be rolling a D12 and a load of D6 potentially for their skills. So you get that dice pool mechanic, which feels nice. It sounds nice. But the D12 will roll from 1 to 10. And you're going to add that to your pool, and then you're going to add the number from the D6 to the pool as well. I'm just going to keep showing you just how wonderful this is. But if you roll the 11, that's the Saruman. Saruman's bad. That's automatically going to fail and do bad things. If you roll the 12, that's a Gandalf. Gandalf's good. Gandalf's going to give you bonuses, automatically succeed and things along those lines. You then get to add all your D6 to that pool, and then say you're hoping to get over. So going into every roll, you pretty much know what you need to achieve. We've got different classes and occupations and things like that, as you'd expect. You can play the Hobbit, you can play Men of Bree, you can play different elves and stuff. And then we've got your call-in. So, are you the captain, a bit like sort of Aragon? Are you the sort of champion characters in there? Are you the messenger? And or even all the way down to the little treasure hunter, which technically is Bilbo, I suppose. But I hope you're still being impressed with the game. But combat is... I think that's the one bit that people have to kind of get used to initially. Oh, actually, here's your list of Patreons that you can have. So you've got Balin, Bilbo, Círdan, Gandalf, Gallery, and Tom Bombadil. And they're going to give us a variety of fellowship points and different sort of missions and quests and ideas of what they're going to do. But the game's really divided into 3 different things. We've got a combat, we've got a social, and then we've got an adventure part, and all the players that are going to be part of your fellowship, and the fellowship becomes important because you're going to need different skills throughout the whole of the fellowship to be able to succeed. This is a real proper bonding experience. But when you're adventuring around, you can have a variety of skill checks to make. You can have like a main scout, you can have someone that's determining the area, then together they will then roll and determine how far they can travel per day, because there is I probably shouldn't look. Hopefully, the world. Yeah, here we go. So the world is divided into hexes as well. And let's say if you're going to go from here we go. We're going to go from Little Dune all the way here to I don't know the marshes here. So the games master is then going to work out how far you've got to go. The lore master, as we're going to have in this one, and then you'll be rolling, and the more successful you are, the quicker that you can get there, the less encounters you're going to have, things along those lines. And as they go along, they're going to take fatigue, and fatigue is players getting tired. And if your fatigue ever exceeds your endurance, which is technically your hit points, you're tired, you're too tired to do anything. And what you can do to relieve your fatigue is you can take off some armor mid-combat. And you're going to make yourself more susceptible to special attacks by removing your armor, but it just, you can either be tired and exhausted. It's just such a wonderful balancing mechanic. And then finally you get this sort of social game that's in there where you go and meet someone. It's very important that you succeed in this. And again, Free League have created this sort of mini game, and the more successful you are on your initial roll, the more time the players have got to try and succeed it, which then becomes again and sort of another mini game. It's just wonderful because you've got 3 different styles of play throughout it, but it has slipped slightly. I say it's gone down from 2 last year to 3 this year. I think this is more than likely going to stay in my top 10 for a very long time. It's such a wonderful game. And that is my number 3, The One Ring by Free League. Brings me on to my number 2, which is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which means I have a brand new number 1, which if you're watching this, you can probably guess what my number 1 is. And now, I was quite sad because Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay has been my number 1 for a long time. It's been one of my favourite fantasy games, there or thereabouts, right at the top for a good 25, 30 years of being in this hobby. And this is a D100 roll under, but it's a heavy game. It's brutal. It's a dark, nasty world that is designed to consume the players, corrupt them, spit them out, bring them back from the dead, and then kill them again. It's kind of a game of survival, but also a game of not getting into combat, because combat is deadly. But it does mean that players then have to think for once, because I think one of the things that keeps bringing me back to this is not only the sort of 40 years of lore, beautiful artwork, sort of the world that it's built in here, but it's the fact that it is so deadly. And I think this is probably one of the deadliest games out there. It makes players play it in a way that they don't get into combat. They will do everything that they can to get into combat, and then when combat starts, they really have to think about everything and use every advantage that they can. But from character creation, we have got, I think there's like 60 or 70 different careers in here, from rat catchers to witch hunters to, a lot of people's favourites, troll slayers. I don't like to have troll slayers in my parties because they tend to run off in different directions. But anything that the players can play, they are going to be wild and interesting. Even if you're playing a nun here, it's going to take you through. So one of the other things you got in this game is income. It's how wealthy you are, whether you're sort of bronze, silver, gold, will determine how other people speak to you. There's lots of hierarchies in here. There's elves don't like dwarfs, they don't like trolls and things like that, so there's lots of animosity towards other things. This is a time that was originally brought out by Games Workshop in the 80s. And so we're now into the 4th edition of it. If you're going to pick up any, you can pick up 1st, 2nd, or 4th. You might want to avoid 3rd because it's a completely different sort of rule set. There is a 5th edition, or 4.5, coming out next year. Cubicle 7 have said I should have my sort of preview review copy of it over the next couple of weeks. So I'm wondering whether that's going to sort of swing me back, because one of the big things with this is the fact that it is a hard system. You do need multiple books. You can't just play the core rulebook as it is. There's lots of issues with the game that's there. You need to go and buy Wings of Magic. You need to buy Up in Arms, but apparently it's going to combine it. We have also got the Old World book coming out next year that may or may not swing me further away from this, because that uses a D10 pool system, and I'm a big lover of a D10 pool system, so I generally don't know. There's a few things that the more I've sort of messed around with the Old World, I'm not totally sure that is going to be land for me. But the reason this has fallen, one of the reasons is I cannot now play this not online, because if you're going to play this on a VTT does everything for you, because I haven't spoke about the system. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay uses a D100 roll under system, which sounds very simple in essence, but where it gets complicated is it has success levels. So if you've got a skill of 60, 62, we'll just make it a little bit easier. You need to roll 62 or less most of the time to succeed at a spell check. But the games master might determine that it's a more difficult check, so you need to be at your skill minus 10% or minus 20%. But also, you might need more than one success level. Now, how does success levels work? So for each 10 you're under, this is why I've gone 62. So if you roll 54, so you take the 10s unit, you've succeeded by one success level. And it's not difficult, you know, if you roll a 32, yeah, that's 3 success levels. Again, not difficult, but it's just something that adds to the time that you're going to have to sit and work it out, especially as a games master. But a VTT will do that for you. So if anyone asks me if I ever want to play Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing, the answer is always yes, only if I'm playing on a VTT. But this does one of the most wonderful things that no other game I've ever seen does. Let's say you got to hit someone in combat and you fail. So you got a skill of 50 and you roll 59. Okay, so you've failed by one success level. They're still going to dodge because you have to do the opposed roll. And they've got a skill of 50 and they roll 70. They've actually failed by more than you failed to hit them. You still hit them. They've dodged into your attack. It's absolutely brilliant. But beyond that, there's corruption rules in here. There's always the temptation. If a player fails a roll, you can sort of, do you want to have another go at that? You can take some corruption points, and as they get more corrupt, they may get mentally or physically mutated, so that the players might not actually know what's going on. But there are a ton of skills. It's a very heavy, complicated system. There's lots of minor little rules in here. Initiative's always going to be static. You can't just level up your character. You're going to have to level up different abilities and stuff like that. But you're going to get experience for doing stuff, and you can freely choose where you want to go. It is such an amazing system. I'm hoping the new edition coming out next year will bring more people into this, because say that what Cubicle 7 did with this rule book was, and some of the rules in here needed dramatically right. They've admitted it. There are other books that you can buy now, but because you now need sort of 3 or 4 different books, including the core rulebook, to make it work, it is probably not that palatable, but I kind of built through. So I think that's my number 2, is Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing, which means my number 1, everyone knows what my number 1 is going to be, and I was really hoping this wasn't going to be number 1, because it's so new to my collection, and that is ShadowDark. And that is purely because if I'm playing any game, people are going to go, do you want to play? Do you want to play Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing? Do you want to play ShadowDark? I'm always going to pick ShadowDark at this moment in time, because the problem of all the other games higher up on the list is I've got to learn additional rules in there. And ShadowDark is just, I didn't want to like this. I've talked about this plenty of times on the channel. When this first came out and it was on Kickstarter, and I think Baron Derop and Kelsey were on there promoting it, and I looked at it and I went, I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and they're like, "Why do you like ShadowDark?" And you're like, "Give it a go, play it." And every time I've ran this as a one shot, everyone's gone, "I get it." And every time I see people saying they don't like it, I go, "Have you played it?" And they go, "No, I don't like the rule book. I don't like how it's read. It plays so much better than it's read." Because in essence, it's a nice streamlined rulebook, rule set. You're looking at 6 attributes, and you are just rolling a d20 and adding or subtracting, as you do a lot of the time, those attributes of it. It's an old school feel, because you're not going to get a huge amount of hit points, so you are going to be a little bit weaker, so you have to be a lot more careful, especially at first level. But you can go up to second level and roll a 1 and only get 1 hit point. But we were talking about this a lot in that video that I talked about. One of the reasons that I've walked away from 5e is because it takes old school games, brings in some of the new school, if that's a word, should be now, mechanics, advantage and disadvantage, but it puts advantage and disadvantage back to the player. I as the games master, are not often telling the players when they can roll with advantage. What a lot of the time I'm doing is the players are then using narratively sort of explanations to explain to me why they should get advantage. And that is really what role playing's about. It's not the games master telling people. And I think what Kelsey's done here is, because it is very streamlined and you've only got those 6 attributes and skills are out, it means it's a really good jumping in point as well. For years we've talked about 5th edition being a good jumping in point. Advantage and disadvantage really simple. but it's got skills, it's got sort of what's that level, as you go up levels where you get your proficiency bonus, that's the one, you get to add that to different roles, and so it's got, you know, it's sort of midweight complexity. This easy, you can roll a character up within, I'm going to still go with half an hour because realistically you can do a character within about 4 to 5 minutes until you get to encumbrance and equipment. Now that is where it's going to slow down. But the magic system, absolutely brilliant. It took me a while to wrap my head around the fact that, you know, well, how many spells do I get a day? As many as you need till you fail. What do you mean till I fail? Well, you're gonna get, you know, you're gonna roll. If you're a priest, you're gonna get to add your wisdom modifier to it. But if you fail that spell, so if you get less than 11 with your modifier, you're not gonna cast that spell again for the rest of the day. Oh, okay. It just works. It's simple. It really is simple. And from a new games master's point of view, because one of the hardest things in this hobby is running a game, because you've got to learn all the rules, and there aren't a lot of rules in here to learn. You can go and grab yourself a module, but more importantly, I probably should have said this, you know, everything else that you want to play in my top 10, you got to pay for. You can get ShadowDark for free. How amazing is that, that someone's gone, do you know what, not only have I created this wonderful game, I'm going to allow people, if you go onto the Arcane Library website, you can go and download a free version of the game, which is, and an adventure that you can go and try it. And if you don't like it, it's cost you nothing other than time and maybe a little bit of printing if you printed it off. If you love it, which you're going to, then you're going to be sat back on my channel watching some of my other reviews, and then you're going to see you in my comments going, thanks a lot, you've now cost me loads of money, because the third-party support and everything else that's out in here is absolutely amazing. Jeff Whitty and I were talking the other day, and he was like, well, I think there's too many classes. You're probably right. There probably are now too many ancestries out there. I should probably call it the right word. But as the game's about, just restrict it, you know, because there's sometimes, more is best, but ancestries don't change the game a lot. Because I'll just show you. So, you know, when you are picking from the core rulebook, we've got 6 different ancestries, okay, races. All they're going to do is give you one thing. They're not going to change your attributes. They're not going to change any skills. They're going to give you a couple of languages and then potentially an ability. And that's it. So it's so simple and streamlined. But they say this core rulebook's 344 pages. And do you know what I also love about it? Now, I'm just going to come back to me. The size of the book. I think I'm done with A4 size books now. I'm now starting, as you can see down here, like that's more Borgs and stuff. I'm really starting to enjoy A5 books. They're easier to transport. They're easier to hold. They're just, I don't know, it just ticks so many boxes for me. And more importantly, say third-party support that's out there. If you want anything else, there is so much out there for it. Now, there is a slight problem, and this was brought up in my video last week, where, you know, one of the comments was, annoyingly, it's very hard to get hold of outside of America, which it is, because if you need a physical shop, it can be kind of hard to get hold of. But there are worldwide distribution. It is coming, so that is great news, because at the moment, if you want to pick it up outside of America, you need to physically go into bricks and mortar stores to buy it. But yeah, it doesn't matter. If you got to drive somewhere, go and drive somewhere, go and pick it up. It is the best fantasy game currently on the market. So that's my top 10. If I've missed something out, please let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, again, like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back next week with another video. Thank you for watching.